Hi everyone, I'm the Plant Propagator and welcome to my channel. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what I do, click on the subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. Today it is a little bit of a sticky day in Southwest Florida. So we had a dense morning. Everything is really moist, including the orchids, which just love this kind of weather. So the fog is clearing, the sun's coming out, and it's starting to get a little sticky. Today, what I want to talk with you about is Vandas and Vandas mounting. And to start off, I am not an authority. I actually suck at growing Vandas, but I've had some recent success that I want to share with you. And let me back up a little bit and show you. This is the first Vanda that I owned, and this is it's not very big. It's not doing very well, but I added this to my collection about 3 years ago, and it was a seedling, and I did what I was supposed to do, I think. In some periods when it wasn't rainy season here, I was watering it every day, every other day, spraying or watering. I've been fertilizing it. It hasn't died, but it hasn't done very well, so it hasn't grown too much. And the roots, you can see, are not very long, and there's not many of them. I mean, the roots themselves look okay, if you can see. They look fine, but it just hasn't really taken off. When I talk with my orchid growing colleagues about Vandas, they say they can't understand what I'm doing wrong. They say that they're the easiest orchids to grow. All you got to do is water them every day and just take care of them a little bit, and they're easy, they're carefree, and they do produce large, beautiful flowers. Small, they can make small flowers, but large, beautiful flowers is what most people go for. There can be fragrance. They are great plants. Most of the people that I know don't put them in pots, and they hang them and then water them and take care of them. But I haven't had very much success. Again, I don't kill them, but they don't tend to grow very fast until I started mounting them in my trees. And I've got here, and again, it's not really big, this one right here, it's not very big, but the roots have gotten really long after only being mounted for a few months. So this, and there's a few others that I have that have done well, came from RF Orchids in Homestead. And I got seedlings because they were cheap, they were inexpensive, they were only $8, and so I bought a few of them and I strapped them to my trees. And they've done surprisingly well. The roots have grown, they've gotten new leaves. They haven't, it's interesting that the roots on the ones that I strapped to the tree, and I should say I strapped them there maybe around 3 or 4 months ago, but they're as long as the roots on the plant that I've had for 3 years. So they're doing well, and multiple roots. So they're doing well. All right. So what's going on here? And you need to do what works for you. And growing them with the roots hanging in baskets is not the way that it works for me. For some reason, maybe somebody can tell me what I'm doing wrong here. But they seem to do really well when they're mounted on the tree. And I've got these small one seedlings, and since then I've taken some that I've had hanging from my pergola, and I've also strapped those to the trees, and the roots have just, from larger plants even, they've just grabbed on and done really, really well. So what do I do, and why are they doing well? Well, I don't know why they're doing well. You know, orchids in the wild tend to grow, well, they grow on trees. The non-terrestrial types will grow on trees. And so how do they do this? And so what they do is they grab onto the tree, they draw mostly moisture, but some nutrients from the tree, and it's from the rain as it drips on the tree. And so they really do well in this type of environment. And that's when they grow naturally. When I mount them on the tree, what do you do? What's the good thing to do? Well, what I do is I look for areas of the tree that are wet, either through rain or through irrigation. In this area behind me, this is the orchid zone. And so the orchids behind me are under irrigation. But they get rained on, and then this morning, because of the fog, they really got wet. You can go out in the rain and look to see where the rain is dripping down the trees, and that's about a week ago I came out and I looked in these trees. Luckily, I knew where the rain was coming, but the orchids, I'd mounted them in a rain drip area. So the rain was pouring down the trees, or branches pouring down the trees, and then it kind of runs over the orchids, and that's what you kind of look for. And it's dripping off of the roots, and that's really a good sign. Just to mount these in the tree and you don't have rain, you don't know where the rain is. What you can look for is the lichens. See, I'm feeling right here, and this is still wet from this morning, and because their lichens are growing, the lichens tend to grow in areas of the trees here where there's ample moisture. So I look for these types of areas where there's moisture, and I usually will mount the orchids in the stream of where, and this is where the rain's coming down. So on the outside of all of these trees, I have these lichens that are growing, and the rain tends to drip from the outside. This is a triplet behind me. The rain tends to drip on the outside of the trees, and so where the lichens are forming is really a good place to mount these orchids. And I want to show you what I do with that. Again, you can see what I do. I'm not an expert. I'm just starting to have some recent success, but I want to share that with you. Okay, so what I use as a mounting tool are these rubber bands. All right, and these are, as you can see from the top, these are indoor-outdoor rubber bands, and this is a pound box. You can get these from Amazon, and there are a lot of rubber bands in here. There's quite a few, and I actually looked at this. I did research on this. And the indoor-outdoor rubber bands are nice because a lot of times you'll find rubber bands that will kind of degrade really too soon, too quickly, and then they'll come off, and you won't get them to hold for very long. These are good. These are indoor-outdoor rubber bands, and these will work well. I've had these mounted I use these to mount plants and trees, and they'll last a little while. So they're really good quality rubber bands for what I have. There are other people. I was presenting at a gardening club meeting a few weeks ago, and one of the people in the audience said that some of the orchids in their garden area were mounted using mesh or net, and she strongly recommended against that, because what happened in her case is that the creatures in her garden would get stuck in the net, and she had to release a snake that got stuck in one of the nets that a previous person had used, and after she released the snake, it wasn't very kind to her, so she got her first snake bite. So the rubber bands are nice because because they'll stick around a little bit. They will fall off, but they don't trap the wildlife if they get caught in there. Okay, so what do you do with these rubber bands? The rubber bands, these things are fairly long, so I think they're about a little over 7 inches, and they stretch nicely, and they're black, and you can get them in different colors. But what I do is I cut them and tie them together, and then wrap them around the tree. So here I've cut them, and to tie them together just like this. And so what you have now is just a really long rubber band. So I take these rubber bands and I will tie them around, wrap them around the tree 2 or 3 times. What I'm mounting today are small orchids, so just twice around the tree is fine. So I wrap it around the tree, tie it off, and then what I can do very easily and very nicely is you just pull out the rubber band from the tree and slide your orchid down in there. And today I'm doing Vandas, but I've done all different types of, I've mounted all different types of orchids using these types of rubber bands. I've mounted a lot of the Florida butterfly orchid, Encyclia tampensis, using this type of approach. If the tree trunk or branch is bigger, just tie a few more of these together. If the orchid is bigger, just wrap, tie more of them together and wrap around the branch or the trunk a few times. Okay, so the orchids that I have today, I should mention that the orchids are also from RF Orchids. So they came to town a couple of days ago, and both Bob and Michael had a lot of orchids, and I bought some more seedlings to try. So the seedlings that I bought are, here, let me grab these. So here's a Vanda Heidi Newt times Vanda Sanderiana Athens. So let me show you the label right here. And so this is the first one that I have for mounting. I also have an Arides right here that I'm going to be mounting. So you can see the label right there. And then finally I have a Rinco Stylus that I'll be mounting. Let me show you the label of that one right here. All right, and these orchids, mostly they grow, you know, the Vandas themselves, they all grow sideways like this, and this is how they grow. And this is nice because you can attach them to the tree like this. So if they're like this, and what I do is I try to pick the plants that have nice looking roots that are growing from the side. So here and here, and then I will gently mount this on the tree and have these new roots kind of pushing up against the tree. And what these Vandas do is they tend to find their own way. So they'll find the side of they'll find the tree and they'll attach and they'll do well. Okay, so all that you do is you take these, you pull the rubber bands away from the tree, you then insert Vanda or the orchid in general down in between the rubber band and the side of the tree, and give it a good either spray of water, and you're set. For the first few days, or maybe even up to a week or more, when you mount these things, it's probably a good idea to keep everything moist, everything wet. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually put some sphagnum moss on the outside, not the inside, but on the outside where the rubber bands touch touch the plant, and that'll keep things wet. Okay, so that's all I have for today. Wanted to show you, how I mount the orchids, these Vandas in my tree, and how incredibly well they do, and I'm really happy that they're seedlings. They're doing really well. Even my mature plants are looking pretty good that I've mounted. So that's all I have for today. If you're interested in learning more about what I do, again, please click on the subscribe button and subscribe to my channel, and happy propagating.